we must understand what God said about man's role in the home as a father. The first thing God makes clear is that our children are a heritage. Psalm 127, 3-5 says, "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them." And this passage of scripture screams, fathers are to be raising soldiers for the war that is raging. God has given us the beautiful opportunity to have children, and our goal should be to raise them up to glorify God with their lives. That is the primary purpose. Our children are like arrows in the quiver. We raise them, train them, and then launch them into this world to make Jesus known. Moses implores us in Deuteronomy 6, 1-2, he says, "Now this is the commandment, the statutes and the rules that the Lord your God commanded me to teach you, that you may do them in the land to which you are going over, to possess it, that you may fear the Lord your God, you and your son's son, by keeping all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you all the days of your life, and that your days may be long." Guys, when I read this passage, there is something being commanded very clearly. Men, we must fear and revere God and keep his commands all the days of our lives. And don't just do this yourself. Teach your sons and your sons' sons to do the same. This is a huge responsibility. In other words, fathers are to fear God and keep his commands and teach their children to do the same. This doesn't just happen by us opening up our mouths and speaking. It happens when we lead by example. When our children see us fearing and obeying God, they are more likely to fear and obey God. I want you to listen to me. No matter what we say, nothing evangelizes our children like our actions and obedience. If you're not actively living out your faith, teaching it makes no sense. In fact, teaching it without living it only confuses and ends up teaching hypocrisy. You can't teach your kids to fear the Lord if you don't fear the Lord. You can't teach your kids to love the Lord with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength unless they see you loving the Lord with all your heart, your soul, your mind, and your strength. You can't teach your kids to feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, help the sick, visit the prisoner, welcome the stranger unless you're doing it. You can't teach your kids how to rejoice in their suffering unless they see you do it. You can't teach your kids that you must carry your cross of suffering if you want to be called a disciple of Jesus unless they see you doing it. You cannot teach your kids that the gate is wide that leads to destruction and narrow that leads to life unless they constantly see you doing things completely different than the rest of the world. We can read about it, we can teach it, we can study it, but if we're not doing it, all that will be produced is watered down followers of Jesus. This is why Moses exhorts fathers in Deuteronomy 6, 7-9 to be doers. He says, "You shall teach the Lord's ways diligently to your children, and shall talk to them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your front gates." In other words, teach your children the wisdom of the Lord and do this every day. Not only teach them with your words, but more importantly, with your actions and with your behaviors. This is major priority as shepherds in our home. Ministry takes a back seat. Our careers take a back seat. All other things take a back seat because raising up disciples of Jesus who will go make disciples of Jesus takes absolute precedence, and we must abandon all other desires in light of knowing this.